I think the real inspiration for this book was both the wonderful things that are happening in Desert Australia and also some of the terrible things that are failing to happen there, and trying to understand really how the place operates and how it operates in a way which is different to what we're used to in urban areas, and therefore to be able to understand how we might govern it better for the future.
As an agricultural journalist, I've been fascinated in how people live out there in the outback and that through Australia. The reason I got involved in this book is because we who live in Australia do not understand this place. You know, we've been living here 200 years and we still haven't got a clue how it works. And we have to understand it if we're going to live here in the long term. We have to understand about its water flows, its energy flows, its resources, those sorts of things. So we need this knowledge. The knowledge that comes out of the deserts is really important to us as a nation. The people who live in the deserts, be they Aborigines or pastoralists or other people, they are natural survivors. They've learned to live to some degree in tune with this continent. And that's what the whole of Australia needs.
Many of the sorts of strategies that people develop to deal with the uncertainty of the desert, to deal with the limited resources there, being mobile, things like this, many of those things actually are quite parallel to the sorts of things that plants and animals have also worked out for those environments. So by really analysing how small businesses work, how individuals work, how settlements work, how our governance processes work out there in the desert, we can see some parallels and draw some really useful lessons by making those comparisons with plants and animals.
In writing this book, we found that small business in the deserts is pioneering a new way of doing business, not just in Australia, but worldwide.
I think the book, more than anything, hopes to expose people to some ideas around what it's like to live in Desert Australia, and thereby perhaps to give some hope to people who feel frustrated that they get hit by droughts, that they get hit by distant governments and things like that. To actually understand that just as droughts are something you've got to manage for, they're not something you can rail against and just wish that God hadn't visited them on you. You've got to actually find a way of managing for them. In the same sort of way, other things like distant governments are things which are necessarily there. If you live in a remote area, you're bound to be a long way away from government. And so the way that that happens, again, is something you have to manage for. But the first step in doing that, of course, is to understand that that's the case. And that's what this book really tries to work through, a whole series of issues to do with how Desert Australia functions.
I hope Australians will learn more about their country and how to live in it from this book. But I also hope that overseas people who live in the dry areas of the world, which is half the world's population nearly, will also gain much from understanding how we cope with aridity, with scarcity, with uncertainty. So I think there are valuable messages in this book for a very wide range of people.
A key thing that the rest of the world is going to have to face as we see climate change is that it's going to become more and more uncertain. That more than anything else, knowing that next year is going to be like last year is something which is a thing of the past.